welcome to part 2. Last week we covered shock and awe. Now we're going to dive into what do you do after you have sent out this shock and awe. The customer's excited. They're like, what is this thing? How do we follow up with them? What are the sequences, the tips and techniques that we need to do? So with that being said, welcome to part 2 of this series. So we got the shock and awe, right? So now we know, and there's a couple ways. I think now comes into the follow-up, right? Because you send the thing out the one time, and let's say you did a great job and it is shock and awe. If you just leave it right there and you don't do anything about like that, you just leave it out in the ethos and you send it to this person and there's zero interaction or follow-through that happens afterwards, there's a very high probability you might have wasted your time, energy, and effort. So, Shane, as we talk into this follow-up sequence, how important to you is the actual follow-up compared to just, the initial, here's this shock?
I think it's massive. I don't want to understate it, but I think it probably cuts your costs down by like 50%. No. And when I say costs, I mean your conversion rate is going to be about 50% higher. Mm-hmm. I can't even imagine not having a follow-up sequence, right? And it's come in my practice a couple times when people are like, dude, you're so aggressive in calling these people back. I am 100%. Or, dude, you keep sending me stuff. I do. They're like, man, these guys really want my case. I do. I think if you don't have a follow-up sequence, it's very difficult with a lot of your lead sources to actually make, to get them in that zone where you're profitable once you break down and know your numbers. So by having a detailed follow-up sequence, it allows you to advertise more because you're converting more, but also it allows you to utilize other lead sources that you wouldn't be able to do before because they're just too hard. Right. And I mean, it just has to happen. I mean, if not, you're just burning money, basically. And we've looked at practices in the past, and we've come in and we've just said, hey, institute these two things. A shock and awe, which I consider part of a follow-up sequence, and then a detailed follow-up sequence that lasts anywhere from 5 days to, 30 days or 6 months, depending on your practice area. And, increase their client ratio by about 50%. Mm-hmm. All just from these two things. No additional ad spend, no additional people, just putting this stuff in place because it gets you in touch with people over and over and over. And that's what people are used to. Honestly, most people are not used to one hit, seeing you for the first time and selling and signing up and signing a contract. That's not how most things happen today. Think how often you see something on TV about Coca-Cola, right? Or a new restaurant. You see it a couple times and you're like, man, I see this thing a lot. I should go. There's studies that say how many touches you've got to have to convert somebody. Oh yeah, and those studies, dude. It's the average. Industries are different. Every industry is a little different, but the average is 6. Yeah, 6 different times they need to see you. They need to hear you. They need to have something in front of them, whether it's social media, whether it's a billboard, whether it's a phone call, whether it's a shock and awe. All of those things, and they're all leading. But the average is 6. Right. Which, if you look at that, and what's so crazy about that when people will say, man, you're aggressive at calling back. I'm like, if you're not aggressive calling back, you are wasting your marketing dollars. Like you're literally just saying, I'm going to spend $1 but only get 50 cents in value. Right. Yeah. It's a terrible, terrible mistake. I mean, the top 2 things to do is get a dedicated person whose main job is answering the phone, right, and talking to people. Mm-hmm. And then shock and awe follow-up sequence, right? Those are the first 2 things I recommend for anybody who's spending any money on advertising whatsoever before you even start evaluating things, right? Because if I didn't have a follow-up sequence, I might evaluate some of my lead sources and say it's too high, let's cancel it. Which, okay, maybe your money can be better spent somewhere else. Okay, maybe I'm willing to say that, right? If you've got 4 or 5 lead sources, maybe you can better spend money with number 1 because they're just that much better. Okay. But for a lot of vendors, they reach a cap to where after that, they're not that helpful. You spend more money and the lead volume doesn't go up or it goes up but the quality drops, right? There's a sweet spot for most vendors on what they can spend. So unless you're going to continually hunt new vendors, which I recommend, but you're going to want to maximize all your money. Yep. And you're not going to want to put all your money with one lead source because what if that lead source changes, right? I mean, I'll talk about network TV, right? And some people may disagree with me on this or not, but in the lawyer space, we don't do a lot of network TV anymore because why? I think streaming services have come in and just crushed that market. Yeah. So if all of our money was by TV, I'd be really sweating if we didn't have any other infrastructure. Yeah. The same as I wouldn't put all my money with one vendor because vendors go bad, right? What if that superstar employee quits and goes somewhere else and suddenly all your money is tied up with one person? Mm-hmm. Now, in the beginning, when you're smaller, you may only have enough money to test one vendor and use one vendor. Cool, but we need to continue to increase the number of vendors you work with versus just doing one. I mean,
but I think that's why it's so important that everything we're talking about today on the follow-up sequence and having the shock and awe. If you have limited funds, you have to realize that lead is worth way more to you than the dollar you spent to get the lead. It's worth your future. It's worth your future scalability and building the systems and processes to where you can come in, even if you're the little guy, but you can compete against the big guys. Because honestly, that's a good part about being little is you can do things that others can't do. Yeah. But if you let things fall through the cracks, or you're not aggressive, or you feel like you're being over the top and you don't have a system in place, meaning sometimes you're aggressive and sometimes you're not. Sometimes you follow up and sometimes you don't, right? That's the feast and famine that constantly rides in the industry, especially when you're smaller and it's maybe you and just a few associates or a paralegal and you don't have, a bunch of employees that you could just delegate tasks to. That's where systems become even more important. And the system, if you have no systems at all, and you're going to say, okay, I need to start on a system, the follow-up sequence to your marketing is I can't think of a more important sequence to generate at this point in the game for you. Because if you don't have money, you don't have a business.
And you've got to have a system because you're not going to write a follow-up email to every client, right? No. Or every lead that comes in. It's just not going to happen. And if you did manage to do it, the quality of those emails is going to get significantly, it's going to continue to lower and lower and lower. So you've got to have a system. And here's the thing, you can automate all this stuff. And, and maybe you're first starting out and you don't have any money and you feel like you can't pay somebody to audit it. Okay, there's nothing wrong with having email 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 and have your assistant cut and paste and send that email out, right? Yep. And yes, it might not be super personalized. Yes, it might not fit exactly their situation, but I can tell you, having a system and having it go out every single time is going to do more than saying, overall, over time, it's going to impact more people and get you more clients than doing a personal email that you're not going to continue to do.
Well, we have got a client right now who he's working on trying to do this, and I say working on it. I mean, he's like Yoda. He's like, try. And finally, I convinced him, dude, you're not pulling this off because he's trying to do the manual thing, and he's doing it. He's like, dude, it's driving him. And I'm like, you're missing it. You got these leads coming in, and they're not getting the sequence. He's like, I know, I got busy. I was at court. Blah blah blah. He's like, all these excuses. Finally, I convinced him. I'm like, dude, just hire a contractor. Just hire someone who will create the automation for you. Then you can just take these emails, put them in the sequence, and it will automatically happen. He finally did it. He found this. Literally, he just hired someone on Upwork, right? The website Upwork. He hires this person. Cost him less than $200. Less than $200 to build the what am I trying to say? The Zap, basically, is all he did between Clio and his email provider. I think he was just using MailChimp. It wasn't complicated. It's super simple. Less than $200, and now all of a sudden, every lead that comes in, he has an automated email sequence that's going out to them specific to the lead source that they came from, right? Whether it was family law, or whether it was he's got like 3 or 4 different areas where he kind of focuses because he's a little guy. So each one, no matter how they come in, they have their own email sequence. Less than $200, someone else did it, and all this it's revolutionized. He's busy in the right ways now, where he's not just running around, and it's like. Yeah.
And that's the part too, right? Because once it's automated or delegated, right? But I'm going to say automated is vastly better.
Yes.
Then you as a lawyer can concentrate on things that matter, right? You can concentrate on talking to clients, doing legal work, or building the business and doing work on the business, right? You're not doing this low-level task. And that's where you get to the value of your time, right? And I don't mean anything negative by that, but you as the lawyer and business owner, your time is the most valuable part of your business. And especially when you're smaller and you're trading hours for dollars, right? That you've got to delegate stuff down. And if you can systemize, it's even better because if you've got an assistant who's mailing it all out or emailing it, it's better. But what if that assistant's out? What if she's on vacation? What if they're sick? What if he's got to go to the doctor? Suddenly your stuff doesn't happen. Yep. Anytime I can automate it versus having it depend on somebody, I'm going to do it 100% of the time. Because automation, I don't want to say it never fails, but it fails a whole lot less than, an employee who's got a life, right? Got kids, who gets sick. They get sick. They go on vacation.
And when automation's set up, I mean, it's not that it can't can't screw up, and maybe the automation doesn't go out. But once it's set up and you're using a reputable company the provider that's it doesn't really make mistakes.
No, it doesn't.
Humans make mistakes. Humans forget things. Humans don't do things on a certain sequence. Humans have all these problems that come up that are legitimate. It's not like I'm saying, hey, people can't have problems.
Right.
So utilize the technology inside of it. It's the automated side. So if you're waiting to automate something because of, I don't know what you're waiting for, some magical, I don't know, a wand, someone to say, you could do it. I don't know, permission, but just this has got, and with what we're talking about today, this sequencing, building it up and making it actually shock and awe, making it actually something that's valuable. Don't just go to ChatGPT and have it write you 5 emails and put them into a sequence. Now, if you have nothing, that would be better than nothing, but to legitimately create shock and awe, create value. Maybe you need to go spend some time and write a book and record it on audio, right?
And even simply, your simple follow-up sequence, right? Every practice area, you as a lawyer, the top 5 questions, right? No. And if you don't know, get on the phone and talk to your clients. But I mean, the top 5 questions that they're calling you about. So therefore, it makes sense. Your follow-up sequence should be what? Letter number 1, the most important one, or email number 1. Email number 2, the second one. Email number 3, you maybe throw in some testimonials. Number 4, answer question number 3, right? That's how you build a follow-up sequence, right? Addressing the questions and objections your clients have or your leads have so they sign you. And I've had people say, dude, you guys work so hard to get my case. I can only assume if you work as hard for me now that I've hired you, it's going to be great, right? Because clients like to be, I don't want to say they want to be chased, but they want to know that they're more important than just one phone call.
Yep. 100%. So I think if we look at this as we wrap this subject today and really wrapping this 10-part series that we've gone into, I think the key is understanding you got to get their attention, right? Shock and awe, whatever it is, get their attention. And once you have their attention, don't be a dum-dum and let go of their attention. Right. That sequence then becomes the next most important thing. I've got your eyeballs. Now I got to do something that makes you want to keep your eyeballs on me, i.e. I've got to stay in front of you, whether it's calls, emails, letters, postcards. Go visit them. Go knock on their door. I don't know what it is, right, for you and what you're going after, but keep their eyeballs in front of you. This process right here, they will then lead you to be able to solve problems you're currently not facing. And what I mean by that is, if you don't solve this, you're not going to create bigger problems. And the bigger problems are now, oh, crap, I have too many leads. I have too much business.
Too much work, right.
Yeah, exactly. Like those are the problems we want you in. And then guess what? There's systems and routines and processes that also scale you out of that, which is what we're going to be covering in our next series on how to get unstuck. Right? Yeah. When you're trying to scale and grow, these sticking points, what do you actually do? And believe it or not, guys, there is a science behind it. There is a process and a routine. No matter where you're at and no matter what part of your firm you are stuck in, there is a way, not just magic. It's not just luck. It's not just you happen to be in the right place at the right time. There is a way to systematically build yourself out of those sticking points and continue to grow as big as you want to be. Right? It doesn't matter. If you want to be a $5 million firm, you want to be a $10 million firm, you want to be a 20, 30, I don't care. Whatever that number is, there's a process and a way to get there. And that's what we're really going to start diving into in next week's series.
Yeah. And, as we look at your follow-up sequence, I'm going to say, one, if you're a multi-practice person like this, the attorney you're working with, pick one first, right? Don't try to have 5 different campaigns and do that because that's a stalling tactic, right? Pick one area and say, hey, what are the top 5 questions? Answer those top 5. Throw in some a link or some kind of printed out testimonials and then some case results, right? Whatever that is. Boom, there it is. And then once that's set up and automated, roll to the next one, right? Once that's working. And a lot of people get stuck down in the weeds on trying to track, well, which of these emails is getting open better? Which of these headlines are better? Which, whatever. Okay, that's like version 2 and 3.0. It's not version 1. In the beginning, just get the thing out, get it rolling, right? And let it roll for a little while. And then you can start trying to make it better. But too many people get too focused on mapping out and trying to make it all better. I can tell you, for years, I didn't track any of the open rate for my stuff. I mean, it was just mail. It just all got mailed out. There was no way to even do it. I guess there's no easy way to do it.
Right.
So just getting it out will help you. And also know the timeline for your clients. And what I mean by that is because people will ask me, how long should it go? Well, it's going to depend on your practice area, right? If you're a criminal defense lawyer, your timeline's shorter than, because you've got people who are getting arraigned and then they're getting court-appointed lawyers and stuff. So your timeline's going to be shorter versus a personal injury case. There's a sweet spot for medical care and treatment. You can sign people up after that, but it may not be as valuable versus bankruptcy and foreclosure. Whatever the timeline is in those practice areas, that's probably how long your thing ought to be, right? Yep. And a lot of lawyers, and you're going to be heavier in the front end, right? You're going to be more frequent after that lead, but then you're going to space those out to go longer, and until they transition to your permanent follow-up, drip campaign or your list. But if you're in a practice area that can last 3, 4, 5 months, you ought to do something every 2 weeks after your initial rush, right? Why? Because just because they didn't hire you doesn't mean that they hired somebody else. It just means they didn't hire you. That's what it means. It means they didn't hire you. And you don't know whether they hired somebody else or not. They may have gotten busy. They may have went on vacation. They may have had a sick kid. They may have just stuck their head in the sand and avoided the issue, right? Yeah. And your letter could hit the same day or your email could hit the same day something else happens and they're like, oh, crap, let me call them. Or maybe that one headline they buy into. Yeah. I mean, and I even had a guy who didn't hire me. And then like 2 years later, he called up and he goes, no, man, I got your stuff, your follow-up stuff. And I had just screwed stuff up terribly by the time I decided to hire you. So I just said I didn't want to waste your time, which there's a learning point there, I'm sure, in how I worded stuff. But he goes, right. But on the next case, when I got hit head on, I wanted to make sure I did everything perfect. So your stuff was so good, I called you like on day 2, right? And that turned into a big case. It was great, all because I sent him stuff on his crappy case. Right. So know your timeline, know how long it maps out. Now, yeah, I'm excited for our next series, Trevor, breaking through plateaus, though. I mean, that's been the most, I don't want to say transformational, because the basics certainly helped me get to my first big plateau, right, where I couldn't grow anymore, and I had to bust through those. But I look back over the growth of my firm, and I'm like, holy cow, there are certain areas where I definitely got stuck, and there are certain things I definitely had to do to bust through and go to the next level. And usually, once you break a plateau, what I found is you shoot up significantly. Yep. It's not like if you're stuck at 2 million and you break your plateau, you go to 2.1 and then 2.2. Usually you bust through 2 million and you're at 2.5 almost once you do it. Yeah. And then you're at 3 the next year. So the growth is pretty quick after you break through that plateau. Yep. And we're going to talk a lot about that over the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, I'm excited about that. I'm excited too, because this I think is going to create so much value for those who are stuck, and you're going to see that, man, there's a way through, and you don't have to beat your head up against a brick wall as you're trying to pull it off. So, because I know I did plenty of times.
Oh, I did it for my worst plateau was 3 years, I think. Although I may have had another one that was the same amount of time, and and it just wears you down and it burns you. That's when lawyers run into burnout. I mean, I think that's the danger zone is not starving. No. I think the danger zone is when you're working 50, 60 hours, you're out of ideas, you're stuck at a plateau, you can't seem to grow, and you're dealing with all the issues, and you're like, I'm working so dang hard, I'm not getting more money. No. Right? I'm getting the same amount of money, and it could be great, right? One of my plateaus, I was making $600,000 or $800,000, which is great. It's good money. It's great money. And but I was burning out because I'm like, I'm spinning my wheels. I can't get any bigger. I'm not getting any better. And I'm not the kind of person who just says, you know what, I'm good with $600,000 a year. Right? Because to me, if I made $600,000 this year, next year, if I don't grow the firm and maybe I make some decisions to reinvest profits, but if I don't make $650,000 or $700,000, I'm like, dude, what did I do this year? I didn't get any better. I stayed the same. It's like, runners who, they've been running the same pace for 10 years, or people who go to the gym and all your lifts are the same for 2 years. I mean, that would demoralize me, and it works the same in business.
100%. Well, and it doesn't matter what level you're at. That's what's crazy about it when you buy in. And I think it's if you see all the work you're doing and it doesn't actually lead to more, you're like, what the hell?
Yeah.
This is just what am I doing this for? Which is, yeah. So we'll attack all of that coming into next week's show as we wrap up this series. So if you haven't listened to the rest of this series, go back. Over this 10 weeks, we got 10. I think it was 13 episodes total, because we did break a few of those up into multi-segments just because the subject matter was a little bit more intense to cover in one show. But go back and start at the beginning. You can headhunt, cherry pick which subjects fit you or fit the thing that you're struggling with right now, or just go through all of them and just don't consume it all and binge listen to all of them to kind of get yourself up to speed. But we appreciate you guys being listeners of the show or watchers, depending on how you're consuming the content today. If you got value from today's show or any of the series, go ahead and share that up with somebody that you know. Also, give us a like and a subscribe. The show grows because of you. That's the only reason we keep doing it, so the value that we know that you guys are receiving from it, and it's value for both of us to kind of revisit a lot of the things that were basic when we began, but there's things as we've done this, Shane, that I realize I'm like, shit, I'm not doing that. I've stopped doing that. I'm like, okay. So it's my own little refresher on that. So
Trevor, one of my biggest consultants, he used to do $16,000 days, right? But back in the day, this was unheard of to me, right? That I would fly in, pay somebody $16,000 to talk and hang out for the day and tell me to take my business to the next level, right? That seemed
right.
an enormous fortune. And but he said, a lot of times what I'll do is first meeting, it's so terrible. He'd say, hey, he'd do a bunch of junk in the beginning, but halfway through he'd be like, hey, let's list out 5 to 10 things you did in the very beginning that helped you get here. And then he'd go like, which of these don't you do anymore? And then he'd dig into all the reasons why you don't do them. And honestly, he said a lot of the times his advice when you were leaving is, hey, let's go back. And he did it better because he's a pretty smart guy. But he'd be like, let's go back and do these 3 items and roll them back into your practice. And immediately there would be a result in leads or revenue or whatever. And you paid a guy $16,000 to tell him what you did in the past and what you're not doing now, and tell you to go back and do the stuff you quit doing.
Exactly.
It was baffling to me that he's telling me this and that it worked. And it works so great, and you can do it in your own practice. I mean, 100%.
Oh yeah. Well, we all fall victim to it. So, but anyhow, so we appreciate you guys being listeners to the show. We're gonna wrap for today. Again, share this up if you got value from it. Head over to legaledgecoaching.com where you can get access to some free training that we do there that will help with the foundation of what we've been covering over the last 10 series show. But other than that, we appreciate you guys, and we will see you guys next week.